We'll call the City Council special meeting to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Bynum? Here. Germaine?
Here.
Lamore?
Present.
Here. Whitman? Here. Stillgrave?
Excused.
Mayor Clark?
Present. I see we have a first item up is a closed executive session, but I believe, Mr. Pastor, there's an item to be added to item C to the first, for the closed session.
Thank you, Your Honor. If we could add item C, labor negotiations.
Other items? Okay, and so that's our first business. Councilman Lamore?
Yes, Your Honor, I'd like to make a motion that we go into closed executive session for the purpose of discussing land acquisition, attorney-client privilege correspondence, and labor negotiations.
Motion by Councilman Lamore, supported by Councilwoman Germaine, to go into closed executive session for the items A, B, and C as stated. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Bynum? Germaine?
Yes.
Lamore?
Yes.
Felder? Whitman? Mayor Clark?
Yes.
Off we go.
Okay, so we're back. We need a motion to go back into open session.
Motion to go back into open session.
Councilman Lamore, supported by Councilwoman Germain, to go back into open session. Clerk, please call the roll.
Person Vining? Yes. Germaini?
Yes.
Lamore? Yes. Felder? Whitman? Mayor Clark?
Yes. As they're passing out some information here, we have about 15 minutes probably for some discussion items that are on the agenda here. And I already have that. Thank you. And we'll get to as many of those as we can here this evening before the start of our regular council meeting at 7:30. Well, Vince, which item would you like to start with?
Yeah, let's, if we could start with the rental registration and inspection. What we're going to be proposing in the upcoming budget is an increase in the rental inspection rate. Right now, it's at $110. It's done every 3 years. And so we've done a comparison with some other communities, Adrian, Wyandotte, Taylor, I think, in Trenton. And other than Adrian, most of them are significantly higher than what we are charging for our rental inspections. And so what we're going to be proposing is taking it from $110 to $150 with the upcoming proposed budget. And then looking to increase the reinspection fee from, I believe, $75 to $100. And again, in comparison with other than with Adrian, we're clearly in the ballpark with what other communities are charging. And again, I think it helps with staying on top of some of our rental units and hopefully, making a cleaner, safer environment for the tenants that live there. So I present that to you just for purposes and comment before we incorporate that into the proposed budget. Thoughts, comments?
Questions or comments? We'll start at the end. Andrew?
Can you help me out? Missed inspection fee, reinspection fee. I schedule the inspection, it's $110. I'm not there. The inspector shows up and finds a locked door. It's another $75. Is that my understanding?
Yep.
And then that needs to be rescheduled again. Is that an additional $110 or?
No, the reinspection is if they come in, find some violations, items that have to be addressed, and then they come back to make sure that they have been addressed.
If I may ask a follow-up question, in what proportion of our inspections, for the rental inspections, do we find some sort of violation that would necessitate a reinspection?
Any idea?
Good evening. Generally, we don't have a whole lot of re-inspections, and we only charge for the re-inspections if they're significant. So in the instance where somebody needs to change the batteries in their smoke detector, we don't charge to go back out and inspect that. However, if there are life safety issues at hand that need to be corrected, then we charge to go back out and look at those. Smoke detectors and some of those items were there for less than 5 minutes to verify it works, check the box and go. But if there's larger, more hazardous issues that we have to look at, that we're going to be there a little bit longer and take a little more thorough inspection, that's when we charge the additional $75.
Okay, thank you.
And
Councilman Moore?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the list here, looking at ours versus Adrian's, and we look, am I correct in saying comparable?
No, they're substantially lower. Well, size or population? Is that what you're?
No, I'm looking at fees. I'm just looking at the fees. The inspection fee is $100 in Adrian, $110 here in Monroe, is what we're currently at, correct?
Right.
So if I may, however, all the cities that you see listed on this list also charge a registration fee on top of the inspection. We don't have a registration fee. We have a registration and inspection fee, where every 3 years you have to pay the registration and get inspected. Adrian and the other communities, you have to register and get inspected. So in Adrian, it's actually $200, where in the city of Monroe, it's only $110 because we combine those two together.
Councilman Gervini?
So with the contractors being so behind and having a hard time, are we going to impede on the landlords to pay in addition because contractors are so hard to get? How does that work?
So it depends on the violation, how many days you have to get it corrected. Life safety issues, more concerning issues, are typically 7 days or less. And we've had some examples where they're more longer term projects. If you're in communication with us and you've got a quote from a contractor, you have a contract signed by a contractor, you're on the waiting list, obviously we work with you in those circumstances.
Thank you.
Councilman Vining?
Mark, can you recall, I can recall we recently went up on the rental inspection fee. How recent was that? Do you recall?
Probably 3 years.
At least, I'd say more than that.
Yeah, it was pre-COVID. Now that I think about it,
And at that point, we talked about some sort of incentives. At the time, we were having really trouble getting people to get their inspections done. So we talked about landlords who consistently pass their inspections, giving them some type of discount or break. Have we gotten into that or written that down?
So last week at the Blight and Rental Housing Inspection Team meeting, that's something that we looked at and brought up again, was an amendment and looking at the rental housing ordinance, possibly changing the number of years for inspection. So for those who are more habitual offenders and have a lot of issues, we may move to an annual inspection, where if we're there every 3 years, there's never any issues or minimal issues, we'll keep you on the 3-year cycle. But so that came up for discussion to take another look at last week, but we haven't moved forward with it yet.
You know, since COVID, rents have went up. I think I just read something in the state of Michigan, like 10% all the way up over 30%. Rents are increasing, and 9 times out of 10, these are going to get passed on to the renters. So, yeah, I'm not against it or anything. I mean, I'm just curious, like, why did we come up with, how did we come up with this number? And, you know,
well, I think if I may again, reduce what was probably costing it out higher than $110 for an inspection, because it's entails quite a bit of time as far as organizing it with the administrative aid in the department, scheduling it with the inspector. You start putting all the details together and all the support that goes with it. $110 is not that much for an inspection that would go along with it. We haven't done the full-blown cost analysis, but when you start mentally putting it together, it's pretty involved. And on top of that, it doesn't include all of the repeat aspects of it. If you got a smooth one, yeah, probably 110 is enough, but there's some that require a lot more hand-holding, a lot more callbacks, a lot more correspondence, and so I think 110 was again probably subsidizing from the building fund for that. This is probably getting closer in line with where it needs to be from a cost of service standpoint.
Other questions or comments? Councilman Felder?
I can't help but notice that there's no other Monroe County communities on this list. Do any other Monroe County communities have rental inspection fees, or are their departments not as robust as ours?
Our direction from the manager was to get other cities. I guess Dundee would be the only other one to kind of, I guess Petersburg, I'm not sure they're that much bigger though, that would, so.
Okay. How often do these communities require inspections? Is 3 years pretty standard for everybody, or?
Some more frequently. I think 3 years is probably the outlier as far as the frequency.
So some of these inspections might be required
More
annually?
frequently, yeah.
Yeah, okay. You addressed cost of performing inspections a little bit already, and we've talked about building permits in the same way, of you want to have the department break even on performing that service for the residents. I think that the cost of doing the inspection is both at the cost of the renter, it's a cost that we know that is going to get passed on, but also kind of to their benefit to make sure that they have a safe place to live and that our housing stock across the city is kind of kept up. But does this put any upward pressure on the cost of our missing middle initiative in terms of building more density? For example, this is not a cost that is experienced by single-family detached units.
Well, if you look at it, and again, let's just say you went straight forward with it, put the full load cost of everything in there for $150, and you do it over a 3-year period, you're talking $50 per year. Probably less than, a little over $4 a month is really what that marginal increase is. So if you're a good landlord and compliant, it's not going to be a significant part of your cost of doing business. So I think again, the 3-year duration for a good landlord is pretty favorable, I think, and the price and the value still is there.
But we have no finite estimations at this point of this is the amount of inspections that have been done, this is the cost of the department to run those inspections, divide the two, and you have a number.
We
don't
haven't
know
done
what
the
that is.
full-blown cost analysis, although we kind of looked at it a couple of years ago, several years ago, when we did the building permit. We had Plant Moran take a look at it, and I think that's what prompted some of the increase 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay, thank you.
As I looked at this, I know there's not other county municipalities, but they're from a population size and similar, I'll say rental exposure is probably the purpose for the selections that are there. Okay.
And I believe that the selection probably is of cities that represent the demographics of our own. But I know that when our residents are comparing themselves to their neighbors, they're not necessarily looking at Trenton and Taylor. They're looking at Frenchtown. They're looking at Bedford. So that's kind of a reality of the situation that we're in, whether or not that's fair or not. But
Then you bring in the difference between a township and a municipality, and I think there's significant
again,
difference there.
I think it's fair. but
I don't know that it's fair or I think it's more of the, what your likes, like service would be, population, makeup, all kinds of items.
Yeah.
I don't know what the township does, and I think it's a whole different process. We've talked about that just from the municipal finance side, so. Okay. Councilman Viney, do you have a follow? No. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Vince, anything further?
Just to provide this out here for dialogue with the understanding the intent is for administration to incorporate it into the proposed budget.
Okay. That'll come up later when that comes forward.
Yep.
Well, I see we have about 6 minutes. I'm not sure you're going to get to any others.
None of the other items we'll get through in 6 minutes, so
Okay.
I need them.
We'll have those at the next time. If there's no other comments. This is a special meeting, so I should, before we do that, because we do have public here for the works, for the special meeting. And once we adjourn, we'll come back into the regular meeting, but I'll see if there's any public comment here for the special meeting items or conversation. Councilman Viney, did you? Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. There's a motion by Councilman Lamore, supported by Councilman Viney to adjourn. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Vining?
Yes.
Jermaine?
Yes.
Lamore?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Whitman? Yes. Mayor Clark?
Yes. So we'll be back in about 5 minutes. Yes, it's 7:31. It's 7:31, so we need to get started. Yeah. We're wandering back. Patrick.
Waiting until a lot of work and
I believe they're ready, so we'll start. And call the city council meeting to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Vining.
Here.
Jermaine. Here. Lamore. Felder. Here. Whitman. Here. Steelgrave.
Excused.
Mayor Clark.
Present. And ask we all please rise for the invocation. Remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Guide our working together, give us wisdom to make the right decisions, your understanding to listen to each other, and your compassion to promote the peace and welfare of the residents of this community.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Clerk, next item, please.
The next item is approval of regular agenda.
Mr. Pastu, First Administration, any adjustments to the agenda?
Nothing additional, Your Honor. Thank you.
Any items from council? I don't see any.
Your Honor,
Yes,
make a
Councilman Moore.
motion to approve the agenda as written.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Moore, supported by Councilman Felder to approve the regular agenda. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Vining. Jermaine. Lamore.
Yes.
Felder.
Yes.
Whitman. Mayor Clark.
Yes. Next item, please.
Consent agenda, and for item B, approval of payments to vendors, the amount should read $978,213.04, 978,213.04.
Thank you. Are there any items on the consent agenda that council wishes to have pulled for further discussion? Any, Councilwoman Viney?
39, 35.
At 3945?
39, I'm sorry.
The one, you'll have the one.
Yeah, no, that's not. Yeah. One moment, just one moment.
Never mind, scratch that.
Yeah, that's okay, that's okay.
Okay.
You want to see this one?
No, I have.
Okay. It was on the consent agenda. Council wishes to have pulled for further discussion. I'll give Councilman, if you need a minute, we can wait. You good? Okay. Any items on the consent agenda, those present here this evening wish to have pulled for further discussion? Any items on the consent agenda from those present here this evening? See none. Councilman Felder?
Yes, Your Honor, I'd like to make a motion that all items on the consent agenda be accepted, placed on file, recommendations carried out, and resolutions adopted.
Motion by Councilman Felder, supported by Councilman Lamore, that all items on the consent agenda be accepted, placed on file, recommendations carried out, and resolutions adopted. Please call the roll.
Councilperson Vining. Jermaine. Lamore.
Yes.
Felder.
Yes.
Whitman. Mayor Clark.
Next item, please.
The agenda is under presentations. Item 3965, response from Norfolk Southern Railroad.
Pass two.
Your Honor, back on February 21st, Mr. Lewis and I had sent a letter to, at the request of council, to Norfolk Southern regarding concerns with the structural integrity of the retaining wall at the railroad on Kentucky Avenue. We indicated to them that certainly in light of what took place in East Palestine, Ohio, and other concerns with safety and well-being for our Monroe residents, that they provide indication of what the condition of the structural integrity and what plans they would have to repair any deficiencies with that. They were aware that this would be on the city council's agenda tonight, and that we would share a reply, of which we have not received. And they were informed it's going to be on the agenda whether you reply or not, and here we are without, Mr. Lewis hadn't received anything, and so, but they were put on notice. We know that it was received by one of their representatives, but not responded to.
Last, do you know if there'll be a follow-up correspondence or time frame that we might have that would send up a reminder? I think it would be appropriate.
I think that we'll send another letter to them. Essentially, we did not hear, that express our disappointment that they don't take safety as much of a concern, and that's in fact how the community is viewing your non-response for our reasonable request.
Other questions or comments from council on the correspondence?
Good.
Very well. Clerk, next item.
Item is item 3924, CDBG Annual Action Plan 2023-2024 Public Hearing. And there are no comments on file in the clerk treasurer's office.
Thank you. Mr. Pestu?
Nothing else to add, Your Honor, at this point, other than the notice was provided out there for our 23-24 CDBG action plan.
So I understand as our public hearing has received comments on the proposal at this time, but also during a council action, the second public hearing will be scheduled. Is that correct? That is correct.
Yep.
Okay. If there's no other comments from council at this time, I'll open the public hearing on item 3924, the CDBG Annual Action Plan 2023-24, public hearing to receive comments. Any comments this evening from those present here this evening regarding, yes, please stand forward, step forward, please. Name and either address or jurisdiction or residence.
Second Street, Monroe. So just wanted to weigh in because I've been looking through all the CDBG information. And so I just wanted to put it out there. When you look through the plan, there are a lot of times in the plan where Oaks is mentioned, where it talks about this relationship with Oaks, where it talks about our tiny house project. There are several things that are mentioned that every time we have tried to talk with the city about those things, it is said that no one knows about these things. I know we have tried to, before Jeff Green left, we were waiting to find out about whether or not we would be able to become a planned unit development. And that's something we talked about with Vince for some time and with Mr. Green. And we kept hearing we got to wait for the Orchard East sub-area plan. And we were going to be invited to be a part of that. We got on the bus and it was a horrible experience. Councilman Felder was there, Councilwoman Vining, Germaine was there. And so we never got to bring up any ideals or show any of our properties or anything else to the organization regarding the sub-area plan. So I'm just putting that out there because whenever I've had any interaction with HUD, they are always under the impression that we have a relationship, a great relationship. And even when you all were getting audited and we asked for the last CDBG money where we had projects that were already finished and we turned in the paperwork for the projects that were already finished and allowed Caitlin to pick the projects that the city would reimburse Oaks for. And then when the paperwork was not done correctly and the city did not follow their own policy, and there was a $50,000 amount that was not covered, Oaks was blamed for it, even though in talking to HUD, it was not our fault. It was all the city's fault because of paperwork not being done and the city not following after their own guidelines. So I just wanted to throw that part out there because we're talking about CDBG funds.
For the 2023-24.
Absolutely.
year. Okay.
So this is moving forward. Why Oaks did not apply is not applying for any CDBG funds, because I know it was remarked by Mark Cochran
Hold
that
on.
we would not qualify because of the $50,000, which was not Oaks' fault, which was actually because of Caitlin not doing her due diligence. I'm just bringing
Pastor
this.
Bowen, what is it about the 2023-24
It is.
plan that you have comments on? And
That's what I'm
what's
talking
the
about.
proposal? Are you
Right.
talking about the past?
Well, I'm talking about the past because it goes into the future.
Why you didn't apply?
I'm sorry?
You said that's the reason you didn't apply, for this year.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct. So that's what I'm talking about.
okay.
So moving forward, I wanted acknowledged that Oaks did absolutely nothing wrong.
Pastor
That
Bowen, the
every
platform
proj-
is not for yourself or your Oaks. It's about the action plan that's in front of us and the items that are being presented. I
Okay.
understand that you didn't apply the reason why, but there's other conversation we'll probably continue to have regarding that. But tonight it's about the action plan and what the public hearing for what's being presented. Is there anything in the plan that you don't support?
As I said, moving forward,
Mm-hmm.
as we work together, moving forward, I just wanted to make that acknowledged with council what happened, as well as if the $50,000 that was given, because in here it talks about the wonderful relationship that we all have and all that is done towards homelessness and homeless persons. So the $50,000 was spent of taxpayers' money towards helping the largest shelter in the city of Monroe, in Monroe County. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your comment.
No problem. Thank you.
Other comments, public comments regarding the action plan for 2023-24, the CDBG action plan for 2023-2024 public hearing. Other comments regarding the CDBG? Public comment? For the, well, it is public comment related to this Community Development Block Grant Funds plan for 2023-24.
So my name is Sonia Hudson. And
Your address or jurisdiction of
address
residence?
632 West 9th Street. I work at Oaks of Righteousness, and my concern with the spending of the block grant is that I'm seeing a lot of money going towards MCOP's community center. And when it was ALCC, it was a big problem as far as what they were doing with the money. And I don't see those questions coming. But what I do see is that the center is no longer inviting to the community. They close at 6. The 3 meals that they used to give to the youth every week, they're no longer giving. Kids are being turned away because of a $60 passport that they can't afford. And I noticed that some of the money was being allocated for cooking classes and things of that to help with prevention of mental health crisis. I grew up down there, and I have mental health issues, and cooking didn't help me. I cooked every day of my life. I think that the city needs to really consider how the money is being spent, and not just the way it looks on the website, but actually what's happening in the community, because it's definitely far from a community center. They can't even properly facilitate a funeral function, a funeral repast dinner, because the kitchen that's beautiful, state of the art, it's in the basement. Where they have to serve is all the way at the top. These are all shortfalls that fall on the workers at Oaks. My main concern is with just the overall environment. The fact that now they're sending people who have mental health to the community center. Like,
Sonia?
I get that that's not part of it, but the fact that money is going from the city to the center.
Sonia, this is about the CDBG.
So come back to this in a minute?
Yeah, if you'd
Okay,
like
let
to.
me know, please, Mayor, and I'll come back.
This is about, we want to see here if there's things within the plan that people have input on of either support or don't support or what it might be. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Right, so my comment about the cooking classes that's in that block grant, that wasn't pertinent to what this,
Yeah, it
like,
was, but-
I'm speaking out of turn right now.
No, you weren't.
Okay,
But you were
so-
you were moving on to something that may not have been. It was directed in personal.
Okay. All right, so I disagree that the amount of money that the city is giving to MCOP to go towards cooking classes, for one, it doesn't take that much to cook nothing. And for two, it's not gonna help. And for three, people who are making decisions have no idea what it's like to be down there, because you choose not to.
Other comments from those present here this evening regarding the CDBG action plan for 2023-24? Further comment? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. And remind, well, it'll be on the council action for setting for the second public hearing regarding this matter. Clerk, next item, please.
The next item is under council action. Item 3925, schedule CDBG Annual Action Plan 2023-24 public hearing.
Mr. Pastu?
Similar, same CDBG program. The HUD requires a second public comment period would be triggered after tonight's public hearing, and that we would be scheduling that for May 1st, 2023.
Okay. Councilman Lamore?
Yes, Your Honor, I'd like to make a motion to begin the 30-day comment period, schedule the second public hearing on the proposed annual action plan at the May 1st, 2023 City Council meeting.
Motion by Councilman Moore, supported by Councilwoman Germaine on item 3925, scheduling the CDBG annual election plan public hearing on the dates and times stated. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Vining? Germaine?
Yes.
Lamore?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Whitman? Mayor Clark?
Next item, please.
The next item is item 3949, Auditor Agreement Extension.
Mr. Pastu?
Thank you, Your Honor. City Administration's recommending another 5-year agreement with our auditors, Plant and Moran. We're kind of at an interesting point with all of the ARPA money that's been received for many of the projects that we've allocated for construction projects. And on top of that, we will be engaged with single audit requirements as a follow-up to that, not to mention some of the port funding that they receive from the federal government as well. So we think, continuing with Plant Moran makes a lot of sense given their knowledge and understanding of our operation, as well as the complexity of some of the sources of funds that are now coming in to the city. And so the last part of it is any change in auditor requires a pretty significant investment on the part of staff. And I think that, we've had the good working relationship. They understand our operations, and it makes sense to move forward with another 5-year commitment.
Questions or comments from council? A motion would be in order.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion to approve the 5-year audit agreement with Plant Moran for the fiscal years 2023 through 2027, and authorize the city manager to sign the engagement agreement on behalf of the city.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Moore, supported by Councilman Felder on item 3949, the auditor agreement extension. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Vining?
Yeah.
Germaine?
Yes.
Lamore?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Whitman?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. Next item, please.
The next item is item 3951, approval of CDBG subrecipient agreement, MCOP.
Mr. Pastu?
Thank you, Your Honor. City Administration's recommending a CDBG agreement with MCOP related to emergency rental and mortgage assistance for qualified residents.
Okay. Council, any comments, questions? Councilwoman Devining?
I had some questions. I don't know, is it appropriate?
Yeah. Yeah, Mr. Pastu, and then if he has the answer, if not, it'd be staff, yes.
Okay, I brought this up when the first SERA funds became available, and we discussed how I was finding issues in the community with people applying for the SERA funds and still making it all the way to the eviction process, ending up in court. So I just wanted to make it aware, make everyone aware if they were not, that how it happens. I know, Stephanie, you discussed that there were 2 different housing programs. One was for people who were already evicted or in the eviction stage, and the other was to avoid evictions. And what I found happen is when people apply for the SERA funds, and I'll include the funds that we also gave to MCOP for rental assistance. So if the check didn't get to the landlord in a certain amount of time, the person was directed by MCOP to go ahead and go to court. We'll be there to advocate for you when you get there. I don't know if you all know, but once you go to court, even if you show up with the check and pay the landlord and the person doesn't technically get evicted, that judgment still shows up on their record. So then that makes it more difficult for them to rent in the future, because if they move or try to rent a new place, every time they showed up in court, even though eventually the landlord was paid, those judgments are showing up on their records. So I heard this from at least a dozen people that this happened to. So I wanted to make it aware, because now we're considering giving more money. I want to know what can be done to stop that from happening. I know you had some COVID issues with the staff, and some other issues getting the program running smoothly. And I just wanted to know, were you aware of that? And if so, have you taken any steps to address that problem?
I just have Stephanie, if you're okay, responding to that?
Sure.
Okay.
I would be happy to. As part of the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, which was pre-SARA, and then the SARA Rental Assistance Program, it was a requirement that we had a partnership with the courts, and we did pre-trials. This was before anything went to trial, and then the pre-trial session, we could determine whether or not that case was going to be assisted with SARA funds. That would avoid a judgment altogether, because there was a mediator, the courts and MCOP worked together to make sure they knew that if we were going to pay it, that it wouldn't be a judgment on their rent. And that was a process that was put in place for the eviction diversion program, which was pre-SARA, and then the SARA program, which just ended 12/31/22. Pre-trial will continue. We just met with Judge Brown last week. That pre-trial process will continue so that we will get to people before that point. And that's exactly the point of the pre-trial, so that it wouldn't continue to harm our clients.
So you were aware that was happening then?
I'm aware that there were pre-trials happening. Now, there's a lot of cases where, we could only pay rental assistance for people with back rent due to COVID. There were other non-payment of rent issues, which may have then resulted in them being evicted. But you would have to talk to me about specific instances to know what you're referring to. But
Typically, these were people who never got evicted.
Mhm.
MCOP eventually sent the check to the landlord.
Oh, good. So they didn't get evicted.
Right.
Okay.
But if you pull their credit,
They have a judgment based on that. Well, we can look into that a little bit further to see why the pretrial didn't work, because that was the whole point of the pretrial process with the courts, was to make sure that there wasn't a judgment that didn't impact them in the future in getting future rentals. So that's something we can look into for sure. Because that was a statewide and something that was done all across the United States. So I'm sure if it happened here, it isn't an anomaly, that it's something that, perhaps we can look into.
yeah, yeah. And, of course, Monroe County is not, it's not the most renter-friendly community. There's a lot of barriers to being able to rent. You know them. If you have an outstanding utility bill, or
Oh,
have
sure,
a
and that's not
past
just Monroe.
eviction.
That's all across the state of Michigan and the United States.
Yeah,
That's not specific to Monroe at all. And a lot of these issues are not.
right, but it exists in Monroe.
It exists in
Yeah, that's
Monroe,
what I'm
absolutely.
concerned
Yeah,
about
we are
right
not
now.
an anomaly, though.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I didn't think we were, but I'm just speaking on
Yeah,
Monroe
absolutely.
because the money is coming out of Monroe's budget. But I know that
Yes.
it happens everywhere. But I thought that it would be avoided because of this system where you told us here before the council that they'll advocate in the court so
Oh,
that
absolutely.
it doesn't get to that, and it did.
Okay,
And,
well, we can look into this specific instance, Kelly, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That was it. Yeah.
Other comments on the, Councilman Felder?
Yes, thank you, sir. I'm just checking that this allocation here was already budgeted for 22-23 funds. It's not the 23-24 that we just discussed for the public hearing.
Cover the COVID funding is, yeah, still,
And these funds are only for, you said, COVID-related non-payment? Getting that term right.
We have COVID rental assistance funds. These funds are for non-COVID related cases for regular CDBG, as I understand it.
my understanding is it's related from the COVID remaining funds that are being reallocated, but, so.
Yeah, I'm looking at the fact sheet and it's unclear. It alludes to it, but it doesn't state explicitly.
It's not COVID? Okay, yeah, Mark said it's not, okay.
We do have COVID funds for rental assistance, and I will tell you that not everybody has a COVID-related issue with their rent. So the city funds that we use for COVID-related have been excellent. We do have currently 17 families who are on a wait list in the city of Monroe for non-COVID-related rental payments, and so this would be to support them.
Your Honor, I had another question.
Sure.
Stephanie.
Okay. Yep, Councilman Vining?
Are these funds, Vince, maybe you can answer this. Are these funds for City of Monroe residents only? Okay.
Other questions from council? Thank you, Councilman. If not, we have an item that's on the agenda up for approval, which is the item 3951 for the CDBG subrecipient agreement with MCOP. Councilman Limore?
Your Honor, make a motion to approve the proposed subrecipient agreement with the Monroe County Opportunity Program and authorize the city manager to execute the agreement.
Motion by Councilman Limore, supported by Councilwoman Germaine on item 3051, the approval of the CDBG subrecipient agreement, MCOP, for as stated. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Vining? Germaine?
Yes.
Lamore?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Whitman? Mayor Clark?
Yes. Clerk, next item, please.
The next item is item 3956, ARPA Public Safety Stipend, Public Safety Directors and Commanders.
Thank you. Mr. Pastu, I know we've had this conversation previously. It appears that something got missed, but
Yeah, no, I think, we've extended the ARPA, public safety stipend to all of our sworn fire and sworn police personnel as well. And what we're requesting is to include the commanders, all three of the commanders, as well as the director in that. It's contained in the collective bargaining agreements for the other ones. And at the time of the last disbursement this past October, the commanders were still in a collective bargaining agreement. So going forward, the intent would be to include all of them in that annual stipend for the next few years.
understand. Questions from council for Mr. Pastu?
Your Honor.
Councilman Limore?
I have a question for our attorney. Due to my relationship with obviously my son involved in the public safety department, is this something I should abstain from?
I would say based on the fact that he is not a participant in this particular action item, would not be a beneficiary of that particular decision. I don't see that as having an existence of a conflict on that particular item.
Other questions?
You have one, Your Honor.
Woman Germaini?
Vince, did you say this was going to be part of the contract, or because they're not part of the?
Because they're
union,
not part of the
this is
contract,
separate?
we're taking separate action
All
to
right, thank you.
include them.
Other questions? Councilman Viney?
How many people does this cover?
A little over 50 right now. Not quite 50, but yeah, it's close.
Questions? Councilman Felder?
Yes. The city manager's most recent answer did not previously align with my understanding of the bill. It was only the Public Safety Department, which is the Public Safety Director, and the 3 commanders. But now he's saying it includes 50 people.
No, we took action as a council previously on this when we were distributing the ARPA funds. I think that conversation came when we were funding things and how we ran it through the public safety, but for other reasons. These 4 were not currently within the bargaining group.
And that was
therefore,
my understanding up until.
it's not 50, it's been addressed.
The whole thing was 50.
That's correct.
This, what we're voting on now, is just for these 4 individuals.
Those 4 are part of the 50.
Gotcha.
Yep.
I'm like, oh, I
Okay.
misunderstood what we were. Okay, no, I'm back on board the boat now.
Very
Thank you.
good. Other questions? If not, Councilman Jeremy?
Your Honor, I'd like to make a motion on item number 3956 to approve the ARPA Public Safety Stipend, Public Safety Director, and Commanders.
Motion by Councilman Jermaine, supported by Councilman Lamore on item 3956. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Vining? Germaini?
Yes.
Lamore?
Yes.
Felder? Whitman? Mayor Clark?
Yes. Mr. Pass two, next item. I'm sorry, Clerk Treasurer, next item, please.
It's 3969, consideration to participate in the new opioid settlement agreements.
Thank you. Mr. Pastu.
Thank you, Your Honor. We received notice through the city attorney regarding alternative to participate in the new opioid settlement agreement involving 4 different firms. The deadline for our participation to file is April 18th, and it does require city council approval of the agreement. And so we're requesting approval to go with that, along with authorization, I believe, for the mayor to be signing those several settlement agreements and participation forms that go along with each of the other 4 vendors for that. So I don't know if Mr. Buds has anything else he would like to add with that.
Your Honor, the only other clarification I would have is because the signups are online and somewhere in the process I was designated as the person to receive the information, if council would so authorize, it would be to authorize me to finalize the necessary settlement documents with those national opioid settlements.
So I have a question, because I think back when all this started, years ago, and of course then the first settlements came out. This is a second settlement of companies that are bringing resolution to their actions regarding opioids, correct? And the city was involved with the first one.
That is correct. You could think of this as a second round with additional defendants, same type of documents and resolution that is largely supported by the Michigan Attorney General's office, who I did receive contact from indicating that they were asking for our consideration and participation in the program.
And the first funds also came through the state in regarding, and those are still being decided on relationship partnerships and how the funding may go and where it goes, correct? And this will take time for that conversation to work through the state as well.
So on those, there was approval for those. Those included companies like Janssen was one of them. And as a reminder, we have begun receiving funds and distribution from those and need to implement how those will be used as part of our combating opioid addictions and other related items with those settlement funds, which Mr. Sell and I have been in contact about moving forward.
So any questions from council? Councilwoman Vining?
When we talk about how much the city received and how are you gonna go about deciding how to distribute them? Are you gonna form a committee like the county did, or will it just be you and Mr. Sell? How's that gonna work?
No, Your Honor, if I may, I should clarify. Mr. Sullivan and I have been in conversation that those funds need to be used for those purposes as outlined in the documents. I'm not suggesting that the two of us would decide. That will obviously come back to council for whatever decision you all would make as far as policy with the assistance of the city administration. We won't know the precise amounts until we know who is participating in the settlement. So there are the preliminary numbers in there, and I'll say, I can't tell you how many decimal points it rounds to in order to get there, but you've got this chart here that shows which of all of the communities. So it will be based on the total settlement, and we will receive a portion of that based on that percentage, which they did largely based on population if you look at those listings.
And did it cost, I skimmed through this, I'm sorry. Did it cost us as a community to get into this?
No. So we did not have any active litigation that we had pursued on our own accord with these processes going forward. I hesitate to use the words class action, but think about it sort of akin to a class action when you get the postcard in the mail of there's been a settlement on, whatever you bought or used, right, that you're entitled to so much. That's essentially what has been worked through with the litigating communities and the Attorney General's office in coming up with a resolution with these companies, and we're being offered the opportunity to participate based on those percentages. And if enough of the communities say yes, this is the deal that they want to strike, which the Attorney General's office is recommending, then we participate on those terms.
Other questions from council? Seeing none, this item's up
Your
for
Honor, if I
action. Councilman Felder, I'm sorry.
The city of Monroe is guaranteed, I think, 0.12% after of half the settlement after expenses, is my understanding. Do we have any idea how, what this amount is going to end up being? Okay. What is the consequence of us or other Michigan communities not jumping on board?
So I'm not going to say I recall exactly all the specifics, but the question is reaching a threshold that there are enough communities participating that that's deemed a qualifying settlement, essentially. So there needs to be enough buy-in that this becomes the settlement that will bind those communities. And look, full transparency, there's a release that goes with that, right? So you won't go and then sue on your own any of these companies because you participated and accepted this as your settlement. So they're trying to determine, is there enough buy-in with this settlement that this is going to be the ultimate end game for this litigation?
So it would be, the cost therein is the forfeiture of any further action against the bad actors listed.
That would be correct.
And for the community's benefit, those are Tiva, Allergan, CVS, and Walmart. That's all, Your Honor. Thank you.
Councilman. Other questions? If there are none, this is an action item for the council.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion to participate in the new opioid settlement agreement and allow the city attorney to review and execute any agreement.
Councilwoman Moore, supported by Councilwoman Germania on item 3969, consideration to participate in the new opioid settlement agreements. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Binding? Yes. Germaine?
Yes.
Lamore?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Whitman?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes.
I have no further items this evening, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Well, it is March, so we start with precinct 3. Councilwoman Vining, comments this evening?
Yes. Patrick, is Patrick here?
He's back in his office right now.
Okay, I've been getting calls from the neighborhood around Father Carnes Park, and they are very excited to see progress moving forward. But I am concerned that the basketball courts that's been there forever were taken out of the plans, and I would like to advocate for members of the neighborhood and asking that we consider putting at least one basketball court back into the plan.
I'm not sure I recall that being removed, but I will go back and look at the site plan, but I don't think it was.
Okay, I
We
was
got-
told that it was removed, but
I'll check it out.
maybe that was some wrong information.
Yeah,
That
I'll
would be
check and
great if
see.
it's not,
Yeah.
because the kids play basketball there all the time. So, and then I just had some lights that are out. I can communicate that to Patrick. when I-
Sure, yeah. If you have a list and want to send that, then just send it along.
Yes,
Then
I'll
I'll
do
put it on the work list.
Okay, that's all I have for this evening.
Okay. Councilman Germaine.
There is a women's event this Saturday at the Opportunity Center at the ALCC. The event is full, however, they are going to allow a waiting list. And the waiting list, you can go to tinyurl.com/Monroe W3C 2023 with hopes to get into the conference. That's all, Your Honor.
Thank you. Councilman Lamore.
Thank you, Your Honor. Not surprised with Norfolk Southern's lack of a response. Basically, I feel it's very similar to the response in East Palestine, Ohio, only if necessary. Not acceptable, but we don't have much choice in this one, but we'll keep our eyes open to the whole situation and want to make sure all of our residents here in the city of Monroe know that we as a council are very together on making sure that they're held responsible for anything that does happen, and hopefully it won't happen. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Thank you. Councilman Felder.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to draw attention to my colleagues' vigilance in continually following up on this issue. Just because we might not have any jurisdiction or authority to compel them to do anything, I don't know that that means that we pursue this in vain. And I think that corporate accountability with the entities that operate within our community is still a very important thing to pursue. I had the opportunity this morning to attend the MML Economic Development and Land Use Committee. There's some very good news, I think, about some of the legislation that's being introduced and passed right now in the state, and that committee got together with a couple of its recommendations to score and make recommendations to our legislature for those issues. I believe there's a number of committees that the MML has opened up that are essentially like raise your hand and you're in kind of thing. So, I mean, if there's any member of city council that would like to get more involved at the state level, and state legislation, given, the limited role that we have here, that might be a good opportunity. Lastly, I know that the budget meeting is scheduled to come up at least. Our next regularly scheduled council meeting on I believe the 2nd or the 3rd. I hope that the council, that this body has a chance to talk about the priorities and visions of all the different councilmen here and women. It's an opportunity for the community to know about the diverse perspectives that are brought forth by their elected leaders. We have a goals and objectives session, but that's, we usually know how well that's attended. And that doesn't mean a whole lot without a committed allocation of funding for those priorities. So looking more for an inclusive process that allows the elected leaders of this community to have some say about how the public's money is dispersed. But I look forward to the process. Thank you. That's all I have this evening.
Thanks, Councilman. Councilwoman Whitman. Comments
I
this evening?
have nothing this evening. Thank you.
Okay. So just a couple comments for me. Kind of ties to Councilman Felder's regarding the Michigan Municipal League. Of course, the Capital Conference is April 18th and 19th. Council members wish to participate. I know that Pat has sent out invites to attend. I know some have put it on their schedule and plan to be in Lansing. Even if you're only there for the first day or even the second day, opportunities to drive up and drive back if you're not staying over. Some of those items that Councilman Feller is discussing will be, I know, in some of the breakout sessions as well. And there's always the opportunity for the legislators that come over. So if it's not in your schedule, or if you have the opportunity, please do so. There were appointments this evening. I just was passed on the consent agenda, and I think it's important to kind of review. It doesn't have to be pulled, but there was 3 appointments. First was the Local Officers Compensation Commission. I want to thank Stefan Pietzak for his willingness to serve. Obviously his application was included. On the Ethics Board, Manuel Mendez is being appointed, and his application was in there, as well as Citizens Planning Commission. And Adam Seapelt, and he's here today. Just well, thank you for being here regarding the Planning Commission with one of the vacancies that came up. And I see one of our Planning Commission members is here also tonight, which is great to see. So those were the appointments on the agenda. We still are having some vacancies that I'm currently working on. Some of the people from the previous Trails Committee have chosen not to continue. I know that one of the Trails members from the previous ad hoc committee is here this evening and is willing to volunteer. So it's not that I haven't forgot. It's just a matter, there's 5 members and we still have a need to fill that rather than doing 2 separate appointments. So I'm working on that as well. So if there's council members have a person that may be interested in that, please have them contact me or submit an application direct will be fine. A couple activities or events that are coming up. The United Way is having its Everyday Heroes, which they have annually, and that is going to be on Wednesday in April, and that is the, excuse me, not April, March. I get that correct, March 29th. And that's in the evening, an evening event. I know that there was personnel from the city of last 1 or 2 that has been recognized. So if that's an opportunity to attend, not just for council, but for the community if you wish to do so. There's also an event coming up on Friday, March 31st at the River Raisin National Park Visitor Education Center. It's their art gala that they have started doing annually. They get multiple artists from our community and the surrounding region that presents art, and some of that becomes part of the inventory for the foundation and battlefield. But also there's other opportunities to view. And then I understand they're having through the following month of April, daily they'll be recognizing different artists that'll be there with their art specifically displayed as well. So that's an item that's from 6 to 9 p.m. as I recall. So those are my comments for this evening. Clerk Treasurer LaVoy.
I have no comments.
Mr. Pastu, comments?
No comments, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, this time is citizens' comments. If there's comments to those wish to speak, and just mindful of the rules of the chamber, you have 3 minutes. Please state your name and either your address or jurisdiction of residence. Welcome.
Hello, Omar Furton, 411 West 3rd Street. How you guys doing? Public comments. I'm gonna say what I want, right? All right, here we go. I am a man, and when I am wrong, I admit I am wrong. I stood before a bunch of you guys a few years ago, and I spoke on the value of MCOP taking over our Flesso Community Center. I was so excited, and I was wrong. You guys may know that I also was vice chair on the board. I served with them. I stepped down because a lot of the things that they were doing, I did not agree with. There's a whole thing now where they want to do a community outreach center for the mental illness. All you guys know me, I work with the mentally ill. I did vocational rehabilitation for them. That is my business. That is my agency. That's what I do. That's my passion. That's my love. So please don't take to me belittling that. But when I went to the board, as the vice chair on the board, I tried to get programming there for returning citizens. I tried to get programming there for people with mental illness, for job development, skills building, and I was told no, because it put a security risk on the kids. But here we are now, because there was egg and people's mud was thrown. Now people have to backpedal. Decisions got to be made. Now all of a sudden the community center doesn't care about the kids' safety, and we can now put that there now. Why wasn't the resources given to the agencies that were there already? Why didn't we help the Oaks? I'm speaking on behalf of Next Steps for my own business. So, and as community member, why wasn't it given to them? That's what I wonder. When I was on that board, they got rid of the classrooms. Where was the love for the kids then? There still is no classrooms there for these kids, but yet we can put classrooms there for the mental illness. There are agencies that do that. If that is what our concern is going to be as a community, then we should hold the agencies accountable for that and give the resources to the agencies who are doing that. I'm here and I admit that I was wrong then, and we all gave support to MCOP at that time. Sometimes you guys go down there, but when I'm down there in the neighborhood, I don't see kids at the community center playing. Maybe when they have the scheduled events, when the photographers are there, Stephanie is beautiful and great at photo ops. Everybody knows that. I'll say it. Go there when there is no community ops there. Go there and see what the kids are eating at the community center for dinner, these numbers that they have with these kids' meals, and then go to the library and see what the kids are eating at the library, how many kids are at the library. Go to the after-school programs there, and then at the community center. And then hold the people that we put in position accountable. Don't go there when you're scheduled. Go there on a Wednesday when nobody knows you're going and see what it's like. Go to the garden and ask, why are we growing kale that is inedible? I am the garden manager for the Selma Rankin's community garden, which is kitty corner. I'm there watering that garden every day and every night. The community comes, we're self-funded. The community comes, helps me. I don't pay nobody, there's no schedule, nothing like that. But at the community center's garden, you can't go get nothing. They got kale that's not even edible. What's the point of having a garden with food you can't eat?
You're at
3 minutes, thank you
last
very
round.
much.
Okay.
So I'm gonna wrap it up. So all I just want to come up here and say is this. I was wrong, and I'm man enough to admit I was wrong. Please, value y'all's decision a little bit more and hold the Art Festival Community Center, MCOP, accountable. And if it means you're admitting that you're wrong, it's okay. We can be wrong sometimes.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Other comments from those present here this evening? We got a couple coming up, but whoever wants to come first. Again, name and address or jurisdiction of residence, mindful of 3 minutes, please.
William Parker, 501 Clark Street. I'm here to speak about this also. I just found out about this the other day, about the mental health coming to the MCOP. I think it's a great liability for the city. I'm just gonna tell you guys straight out. You're gonna bring people that's got mental health issues in a facility with children, and you don't even know what type of background that person has, whether or not they're a sexual predator or anything of that nature, and you're bringing them into an environment where you have children. My solution, and I haven't even talked to Pastor Heather Boone with this, but my solution would be she has a building where she has Alcohol Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous. I don't know who has the funding and all the funding, but to me, the thing would be is to basically rent out a space, give her the clinicians that she need, and then find some crisis stabilization, either with the hospital pro medical or somebody outsourced. That would be the easiest thing to do. For whatever reason, the personal politics is playing its part and it's not happening, but putting mental health, a mental health office down at MCOP with those children, and that is probably the most dangerous thing you can do. And I'm speaking as a parent, I'm speaking as a law enforcement officer. I would not mix adult mental health patients to come in for therapy with those children. Anything could possibly set those mental health patients off. So moving forward, I would hope that you guys really think about this decision, because again, it's a big liability. And I guarantee you, if something happens to one of those children down at the East End Center, down there at the MCOP, I guarantee you, you're gonna have way more people in this in coming up. I know they ain't here now, but trust me, you're gonna have a whole bunch of people down here if something happens with one of those children dealing with one of those mental health patients. So I would ask that you guys rethink of what you're doing with this. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. Other yep, okay.
Pastor Heather Boone, 924 East 2nd Street. So some of you may not understand what Omar and Deacon Parker from the NAACP is referring to. But as you all know, we at Oaks have been dealing with a mental health crisis. Essentially, the country is dealing with a mental health crisis, and the city is dealing with a mental health crisis, and the county. What happened is we're seeing an influx of people who are mentally ill, whether it be that we're getting these people from the hospital, whether it be that these are just mental ill patients, whether it's people with substance abuse, whatever it is, we're having a lot of people. And I know, Mr. Mayor, the comment has been made, we bring these people in from out of county. Actually, Oaks is the shelter that brings in the least amount of people from out of county because we don't work on the 90-day rules like other shelters do. So we don't bring people in from out of county. So I remember Stephanie last month, she came up here to you all and talked about the homeless problem that we were having and the fact that I had said Oaks was going to close down if Community Mental Health, which is a $48 million agency, did not step up and do something. And Stephanie said, we have it. They didn't have it. Homeless people with substance abuse, and Paula, you would not put a person with a substance abuse in a hotel. They put these people in a hotel and it became an absolute nightmare, and it was a big party over at the hotels. So for those of you who are around when Nights In was around before it got tore down, that's what happened at the hotels. And this was at the same time when the power was out in the city. So you had drug addicts, you had people who were mentally ill, you had all kind of nonsense going on at the hotels. Because at our shelter, we don't allow this foolishness. And so with our shelter, we house 75, we can house up to 75 people. We are the largest shelter in Monroe County. We are. And when we're seeing homeless issues, we've tried to work for probably the last 7 or 8 years with Community Mental Health and not got the resources that we need. So what happened was Community Mental Health, as kind of a token, brought a peer recovery person down. And they said, oh, well, this person will be great. Well, that peer recovery person could never get a hold of a clinician when we were, in fact, in the middle of a crisis. And there was a lot going on. And we were seeing these issues. The city police were seeing these issues. I've had officers tell me they've had 4 mental health encounters with the same person in one day. There was no process being done with community mental health. They kept claiming there was not. They're mentally ill people. If you go right now in front of St. Mary's, you got mentally ill people. You go down right now on Telegraph, there was a young man with mental illness who had pitched a tent in front of Myers. And so every time there's a homeless person, people always bring them to Oaks. And when these people have mental illness, we're trying to get help because you drop them off to us and we don't know what to do with them. So we're begging community mental health for help. So instead of agencies like MCOP stepping up to say, yes, we understand, they said, oh, well, if you close, that's fine. We got this. But they did.
You're at 3 minutes, so if you want to conclude.
I do want to conclude, but what I want to conclude in saying is, so because we have fought with community mental health, their answer is to take the peer person from Oaks and to put the peer person over at ALCC or the Opportunity Center. So their answer is to put the peer person, and then they want us and Salvation Army and anyone else in the Orchard East community who is in a mental health crisis for them to then go over to the Opportunity Center for help. Does that seem practical? I mean,
Thank you. It's 3 minutes.
I understand it's 3 minutes, but
if we-
Mr. Mayor, I just would have
Pastor
thought
Bruin, if
that
we
you would have
can-
been concerned about the problem and asked me
We
any
are
questions.
concerned. Well, excuse me. We are
Okay.
concerned. This is your opportunity and your time for 3 minutes to tell the council something. There's a lot of information that's coming in, and I know myself, I'm taking notes as councilman, I see Mr. Pastu. These are things that we'll consider and follow up on.
Well, the
But
only
this-
reason I'm saying that
Pastor
is
Bruin, I'm
because
not gonna get
last
into
month when
dialogue
Stephanie was
or
giving her
discussion. That's what this
presentation
time
on
is for.
MCOP and
Thank
the
you for your
Opportunity Center,
comments.
she spoke
Pastor
up about
Bruin,
Oaks.
thank you
So
for
I
your
just was
comments.
wondering if any of the council
Okay.
people have
Ne-
any questions about what happened with Oaks and
This
why
is
we
not,
closed.
this is not the time in which that's done. This is the public comment time for you to provide your information to the council.
I am, and so that's why I was asking if they had questions about this, because this is a
Then it
relevant
becomes a
issue.
discussion and a dialogue, and that's not what this time is for. Next comment, please.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Asia Hawthorne. I live in the city of Monroe, Precinct 1. And I actually wanted to share a letter that my son, Jaden Hawthorne, wrote, because I feel like the youth are the ones that are going to be impacted the most with this crisis mobilization unit going to the center that's supposed to be structured for them. So he wrote, "Hi, my name is Jaden Hawthorne. I'm a sophomore at Monroe High School. I'm a proud student delegate. I hope that the city council hears me. My mom tells me that my voice is my power, so please hear me. Sorry I couldn't be at city council tonight. I have dinner at 7 p.m., and then I shower right after that, and I'm in bed at 9 p.m. so that I can wake up at 5:30 for school. So please excuse my absence. I don't think that it's safe to have people in full mental health crisis at the Opportunity Center around kids and teens. I go there to play basketball and to box. How do we handle this if we encounter someone that, as my mom says, can be very difficult to handle, in quotes, difficult to handle. Many of us walk to the center to wait for our parents to get home from work, and to get home from work, and this is a bad idea. Think about my 76-year-old Grammy. If she goes there to play bingo and to be with her elderly friends, she had polio when she was 3 years old, so her balance is off. She has difficulty walking, and imagine if she has to try to defend herself because someone is in mental health crisis. Who's going to be there to save her? There's no security at the Opportunity Center. There has to be a better location for this mental health services, and I suggest the Oaks Shelter. Please hear me. So I stand firmly behind what my son wrote. He actually did write this here. And I hope that you listen to him as a 15-year-old student delegate. He believes in the power of counsel and speaking up. And I appreciate your time. And I look forward to seeing what happens.
Thank you for your comments this evening. Other comment? Okay.
Yes, my name is Sandy Lipsdorf. I am the nurse at Oaks. So first off, I've also been on the Community Mental Health Board for 16 years, but I just recently resigned from the Mental Health Board because of our issues that we've been having. And so what I want to explain to you first off is there is no, all community mental health wants to put at the center are peer recovery supports. That is an untrained professional, that is a peer person who can help them make appointments. So there would be no trained professional there, just peer supports. And there'll be nothing like crisis intervention there. We have asked CMH multiple times to get crisis stabilization services because that's what people that are in mental health crisis need. We sought out a bid from another company that can provide those services. Their bid was not to put somebody at Oaks of Righteousness. We aren't talking about Oaks of Righteousness here, and that's the problem. We're talking about severely mentally ill people. That's all community mental health serves in this county. They have $48 million. The only people they serve are severely mentally ill. It's not moderate or it's not mild that are on Medicaid. You see these people, we do happen to get a lot of mentally ill people at the shelter. In fact, it seems like we're running a psych unit. As of this morning, we had 22 people. I don't know, since we've reopened, I don't know how many we have now, if we've gotten more in. And six of those are severely mentally ill. And by severely mentally ill, I mean psychotic. They don't know. They're not based in reality. At times, they can be dangerous. We've had people kick cars. We've had people threaten other people. We've had people kick over tables. We've had, there is, in untreated mental illness, there is a higher rate of aggression and violence than treated mentally ill. There is not, but untreated, which these people are, there is. Now they want to move these peer supports only, who are not professionals. We had the peer support at Oaks. She couldn't even get help for our people. When she called CMH, she didn't have any more luck getting help for them than I did. So there won't be any immediate backup to her because there was none at when she was at Oaks. So I would just like to say that some of these people are sex offenders. Many untreated mentally ill have a long list of felonies. And we've gotten calls from another police department up in I forget what the city was, saying, please watch out, Pastor Boone, this man is very dangerous. I'm worried about your volunteers and your staff. So to put those in with children at the at the ALCC just does not make any sense to me. What we really like to see, we really would like to see them contract with somebody, and they were not going to be on our site. They were going to be located in that neighborhood because there's a lot of people on the east side that are in addiction and severe mental illness.
Sandy, you're
Up,
sure.
up. Thank you.
Over. Thank you. Other comments from those present here this evening?
Hello.
Hello.
Sonia Hudson, 632 West 9th Street. I wanted to say thank you to Councilwoman Vining for mentioning the basketball hoop at the park. I live in that area and I do see kids playing almost every day basketball since it's been tore down. You know, I don't see the kids there, and that I just want kids to be kids. I care about them a lot, which piggybacks me to the peer support specialist at the City of Monroe's building, the Opportunity Center, because it's owned by the City of Monroe, right? Yes? Okay.
Yes.
So then it is your guys' problem. But for me, I'm concerned because my children go there and the senior citizens. Last week, I witnessed 2 peer support specialists from mental health trying to help one of our shelter residents while he was in, not, I wouldn't even consider that an extreme crisis, but they weren't helping him. They agitated him further and had him running across the street screaming and threatening them and other people in our parking lot. So Pastor Boone and I had to go out and help them to get him to calm down and bring him into our building and our facility. I'm just not sure that the staff at ALCC is ready for all that comes into play with dealing with individuals who are, stricken from mental illness. And then also, I don't even know if this is the right place for this, but I'm just kind of concerned about the unsolved murder in the city of Monroe. Kayla stayed at our shelter. We knew her, we cared about her. She was a person, she was a face, she was, she was alive, and now she's not. And I haven't seen anything or heard anything on the news or like no follow-ups or anything. And so I'm just kind of concerned. I don't know if this is the proper place, but I thought I'd bring it to your attention.
Thank you. I see that Director Tolsted's here, and I'm sure that he'll be having a conversation.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments from those present here this evening? Yes, sir.
Hello, Andrew Duhamel, City of Monroe resident, 6th Precinct. Since I've been, for the last several months, semi-regularly attending council meetings, I believe this is the most comment I've seen here, which, as tense as it can feel, it's very heartening to see that. I'm glad that there are community members willing to stand up and speak with conviction. And as difficult as it might be, I imagine, for a council, I am sure that nonetheless it heartens you as well. That is my hope. Specifically, though, I'm a resident 2411 North Custer, which is relevant to my comment. I live right on the corner of North Custer and Cranbrook, and there is the Mark World Trail. That is where it crosses from the south side of North Custer to the north side to connect with Munson Park. My frequent use of that trail and just living there, I'm pretty confident that's the busiest crosswalk for the reason of Munson, I'm fairly sure. And the 35-mile-per-hour zone coming east into town from, say, Raisinville Road, it's 45 miles an hour, and then it drops to 35 miles an hour, probably about maybe 300-400 feet east of Munson, which is a couple hundred feet west of my house. And but we don't have one of those solar-powered speed readers, whatever you might call it, meters. It's all the way down to Veterans. When the 35-mile-per-hour zone begins a little bit west of myself. So I'm wondering whether we could get an additional meter where the actual 35-mile-per-hour zone begins, because not only do I live there, I have kids, I have young kids, one who is very mobile, the other who will be very quickly. So, we're concerned about the speed out front of our house because people blaze through there regularly. They have not slowed down yet, even though several hundred feet back they ought to have. I guess I don't know whether there's any data on whether that meter that does exist at Veterans actually is effective at reducing speed. I would hope it is. I know for myself it is, but it might not be the case for everybody else. But if it is, I'd be very much interested in seeing whether we can get one installed where the speed actually drops. Because again, I have young kids and I see that crosswalk used all the time for people coming and going from Munson, kids as well as adults. And I don't want my kids to be a victim of traffic there. I don't want to witness anything horrible there, and for anybody else, as a child or, mother, father, anything like that. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Other comments from those present here this evening? Yes, please.
Jocelyn James. I live in the city of Monroe. I think it's the third precinct. I'm not for sure. Right? Yep, third precinct. So I'm gonna kind of piggyback off of what he said about the speed in my area. This was 25 miles an hour, especially when it starts to get warmer. The speeding is ridiculous. I mean, I've made numerous complaints. I've spoke to Patrick on the was it the road commission or traffic committee. I've spoke with him before. They've brought out the trailers. They don't seem to do any good. I think it just kind of lets people know how fast they're going, and then they go a little bit faster as they get past it, I think, to see how high it can clock or something. I'm not sure. But I know I showed you a video. I don't know if you remember. I was working over at the MCOP, well, the Opportunity Center, and I had showed you a video of a car peeling out and speeding in that. I think that was this past summer. But I don't know if maybe something like that, the digital speed sign that's always there, if something like that could help. More patrol. I've called about the speeding, like I've said, and from what I was told, the officers, they have to clock them. They can't clock them from the side. They got to clock it from right behind. So I'm not sure how that works, but it seems like they're of no help when it comes to that, just like there's no help when it comes to shootings in the neighborhood. Over the summer, there was a shooting. They didn't even get out and look for the shell casings. I ended up finding 2 shell casings the next morning right on the corner. Actually, it was right on the sidewalk, right at the corner where Aaron Lavender lives. Nobody asked about any ring cameras, any type of video footage, anything like that. So I'm not sure if they're waiting for like an innocent child, like one of mine, to get hurt, if they're out there playing or what they're doing. And then, so I don't know if we could maybe try to address that before the summer hits and it actually starts getting back at, I'd say, a higher rate. And then the mental health, I do have concerns with that as well. My kids go to boxing at the center, and sometimes they may want to walk home from there or walk to there. It's not even a 2-minute walk from there, but I'm scared to let them walk there because they're, what are they going to run into? Or who's going to run into them when they're flying down the street and they don't even see them? What's going to happen if someone's having, the mental health crisis right outside of their health hub or whatever they got going on? Like, who's going to be there to help and protect the kids, as well as give the mental health people the help that they need? Because obviously, we need that to happen. So I'm just concerned, I guess, with what really goes on, or how much effort people put into that neighborhood. I think because it doesn't get much attention or much, anything. I see on Facebook, there'll be a post from like the Monroe radio or Monroe reporters, whatever it is. They got speed traps on, Riverview telling you to slow down and this and that. But I've called 1,000 times for years about Elmira, and you never see anything. It's like a less cared about type of community. And I don't think my kids are less important or less valuable than anybody else is.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Other comments from those present here this evening? Yes.
Honorable Mayor and Council, my name is Pat White, Peter Street, Monroe. So I'm here for 2 reasons. One is to piggyback in support of the Oaks of Righteousness and the mental health issues that we're having. Pastor Boone mentioned that the the Opportunity Center is now receiving $375,000 to help with the mental health issues. And we're wondering if there's any way that a public meeting can be set up to speak about the 375,000 plus the mental health issues plus the drug issues in that area. And secondly, I saw Barry back there. A couple of weeks ago, I experienced quite a mishap at my own house. I had someone in helping me patch up a piece of the cinder block where the groundwater comes in. And so he was getting ready to cut a piece of the plywood there. Well, he hit the water line, so I got water spurting everywhere. I immediately called the water department. I had noted that this was lunchtime, and they had workers out there probably within 15 minutes. It probably seemed like a couple of hours, but I know it was just a very short amount of time. And at one point, there were 5 different people in my basement making sure that this problem was fixed, and I just wanted to commend the water department for their fast work in that area. So, thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Other comments from those present here this evening? Yes.
Hi, Colby, City of Monroe. I first want to say I support everything that's been said about Oaks and the mental health crisis here that we have in Monroe. But second, I'm here to talk about your second favorite topic, Custer. So I hear tell that the Custer lecture that the Professor Gregory Irwin kicked off on March 10th is the first in a 2-year Custer and Their Legacy series that the museum is going to be hosting, leading up to a new Custer exhibit that is set to debut 2026. I'd just like to share with you some pointed quotes from Professor Irwin, who is a Custer expert. So this is in chronological order, and it only features Custer's, quote, golden years during the Civil War, which people like to use to discredit or discount Native experiences of Custer's continued idolization. So these are quotes. Cadet Custer's difficulties stemmed from an immature craving for thrills and attention, not a lack of intelligence. He excelled as an ingenious and indefatigable prankster, displaying an uncanny knack for instantly assessing a victim's weaknesses. Professor Irwin said as early as November 1860, Custer predicted the departure of the slave states would result in war. He quoted Custer by saying, "You cannot imagine how sorry I will be to see this happen," he wrote in a letter to his sister, "as the majority of my best friends and all of my roommates except one have been from the South." Professor Irwin continued, "As a Democrat, Custer sympathized with the white South's resolve to preserve a social order based on a social order based on enslavement. But as an Ohioan, he felt bound by his cadet's oath to defend the Union. Incidentally, the chilling prospect of turning sword against men he loved as brothers did not prevent him from seeking high rank and in one of the volunteer regiments that Ohio had put together." Custer was quoted saying, "I would prefer serving with the troops of my native state," he explained, "because I could get a much higher office, meaning rank, than in the regular service, at least captain and probably higher." He said one of Custer's aides said, quote, "Through all the sharp and heavy firing, the general gave his orders as though conducting a parade or a review, so cool and indifferent that he inspired us with something of his coolness and courage." Custer also was quoted saying, "I never heard slavery mentioned as an issue," he informed his father-in-law. "It was the Union we were fighting for." Professor Irwin adds, "But now, with so much at stake, Custer showered Senator Howard with sentiments worthy of a radical Republican. This flawlessly, well, you can call it disingenuous or careerist performance, made Custer the darling of the Republican majority of Congress." So what I gathered was, I get that he was cool and collected while he was masterfully killing a lot of people on the battlefield. He was good at war. But he did not seem to do so standing on his morals. The only time he appears to have actively spoken out against slavery was when it would suit his political career. I am convinced that if he wasn't in Ohio, he almost certainly would have won the war for the South.
Call, you're at 3 minutes.
Thank you. You know about his swing around the circle. This is the man who Monroe continues to honor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Other comments from those present here this evening? No? Yeah, Mr. Parker, I know you've spoken, so.
Can I just add one thing?
Well, then we'll start with others that will all want to add something, and I'll be here. Yeah, I'll be glad to speak with you. Other comments from those present here this evening? Seeing no comments?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Councilwoman Moore, supported by Councilwoman Germaine to adjourn. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Vining?
Yes.
Okay. 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 Germaine?
Yes.
Lamore?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Whitman? Yes. Mayor Clark?
Yes.